Peace and blessings, everybody. Welcome to the episode of Politically Street. I am your community ambassador, Mr. Robin J. Anderson, all right? Before we get started, I'm going to give my disclaimer, all right? Politically Street is not a politically endorsing podcast. I'm here for information purposes only.
Okay.
On Politically Street, I interview business owners, community leaders, and elected officials. With that being said, I have a good friend of mine. We met kind of like in a weird, but I guess on purpose kind of way, you know. I used to frequent Doshi House a lot out there in Third Ward, and I was walking out and I saw a young lady sitting down, and she's reading this book called Think and Grow Rich. And at that time, I didn't know a lot of people who read that book unless you're into trying to get into sales, or you're trying to manifest certain things and whatnot. Miss Shelby Hill.
Hey.
What's going on?
Man, it's like this. I just like this, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
I appreciate it.
Today is a good day. I'm glad that I'm able to come, be here, be present, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming. I told you I was going to bring you on. You know what I mean? So yeah. So
and you delivered.
Yeah, I'm man of my word always, right?
Yeah.
So what I like to do first, I like to get a background, and then we go full like where we are right now.
Okay, bet.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
All right. So where'd you grow up?
Dallas, Texas.
Doggone
all
Cowboys, man. Yeah.
The people watching, Dallas, Texas. You know, Dallas is funny because when you go there and you talk to people from Dallas, until I came to Houston, I didn't even know we had a beef. Like, people...
see what Dallas did? Knock my headphones off. Anyway.
And you know that podcast where that girl's wig came off?
Yeah.
I was literally
that
thinking
could be a moment, right? Wow.
But yeah, so Dallas, Texas, when I came here, it was funny, like in 2010. So I came out here to go to school, Texas University.
Okay.
At that time, I was actually out of high school 2 years. And I was working because 2008, the recession hit. And, you know, me and my mom come from a single family home. We pretty much... I kind of made a pact with her. I was like, okay, we got to get ourselves back on our feet. So I'll work for like 1 year, 2 years max. And then I, put some applications in for school. I didn't even have my SAT. I had to go take my SAT.
Wow.
2 years later, which if you understand school, you forget everything.
That's true.
So I did the best I could, and then I got accepted to UTSA and Texas University. But it was funny. I wanted to go to UTSA for the pharmacy school. Texas Southern University was on the list just because they had a pharmacy school.
Gotcha.
But the letter came in from TSU like
First.
that. And then on the move out day where I was moving away from my mom and going to the dorms, I received the UTSA letter.
Wow.
So it's kind of funny how things happen because if I hadn't done that, we wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be somewhere in San Antonio having a whole different life.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you got to TSU, now I'm definitely an advocate for HBCUs. I don't care what nobody say. There's nothing like attending a HBCU.
Yeah, it's different.
Because it's different. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I know the world is not built like an HBCU, but it's something about being around, being familiar with your own people. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? And so, because there's nothing like even just the bands and the organization, the Greek organization, it's just nothing like it, man, just the whole social climate, So at TSU, how was your experience?
The TSU experience was pretty interesting because, you go there. For me, I was just really focused on my education, but I had some trials and tribulations my first semester because I'm new to school. So my mom, the farthest she went was associates. And so we really didn't know how to navigate, or I didn't have any direction on how to get the loans, how to navigate all that stuff. So my first semester, I took out my loans. I get there, and after the semester's over, I get my, I guess my bill. And I'm thinking, okay, I pay this when I graduate.
Right.
No, I was like, I thought you paid it when you graduate.
Right.
And they was like, you owe $9,000, about $10,000. I was like, and it was like, you can't register for your classes. So I went to the, to register for my class, and she said, you can't register. And that's how I found out. And she showed me, and I was like, $10,000? I was like, I thought the loans, and so I was just so confused, and she said, no, you pay that after. I was like, what kind of loans did I set up? I was like, I thought this would go, you pay when you graduate.
Right.
But what ended up happening is I got pissed off. because I felt like, because there's some kids there, they were just there for the refund, just to have fun.
That's true.
And they were doing their thing, and I felt like I'm getting all this flack, and I'm actually trying
to do some work, right.
So end up happening is that I was like, how long do I have until you know, like you boot me out? And it was like, well, you have until your winter break to pay this. And so what I did was I stayed on campus for as long as I could, and I went around to every single person I could think of in all different places to get a scholarship. And at first when I came, I was pre-pharmacy, which I later learned, if anybody's listening, you don't really get scholarships if you're pre-pharmacy. That's just general classes put together. And I had a great guy, Mr. Mays. I still remember him. He was working in the laboratory in the chemistry department. He just really worked with the lab machines. And he told me, he said, Shelby, you need to change your major to either biology or chemistry. And he's like, these are the places that you need to go and talk to these people to see if they'll give you some money. But you have to have amazing, you know, GPA.
Yeah.
And so this is before winter break. So I'm like, I have a little time, you know, to figure this out. And I go to all these people, and they all tell me no. And no exaggeration, Robin, I probably went to 200 people, got 200 no's.
It sounds about right.
And I was like, I don't get it. You know, I'm doing my thing. I'm here. Why won't you help me stay? And what I learned is if you're 2 years out of school, high school, and then you come as an adult, as they said, they rather take the kids that are straight out of school and give them the money.
Okay.
So on the campus, it was more fueled for, you know, the youngins, they're recruiting. So for me, they looked at me like, oh, no, we don't, you know. You find a scholarship outside of school. So I was really disheartened by that because I was like, I mean, I'm really trying. So I was like, I'm not going to give up. Went back to Mr. Mays, and he was like, try this LSAMP lab, which is basically a community program for if you want to, let's say, for example, at biology, science, you have all these kids together, they're doing projects, they might send you to do research. That was like the place to be. And so he said, you can try, but they're sticklers, and they don't really like to give up their money to people who are 2 years out of school. So I went to talk to one of the mathematicians who was over the program, who helped recruiting. And his name was Dr. Taylor. And it's funny, I had him for math, and he's a hard ass. Like, so as soon as I come in the office, he's like, what? You know, like,
you want.
And so I asked him for some money. He tells me no, of course, you know, get out the office. And then I keep coming. I said, I'm going to come to him every week. And I said, you know what, first I'm going to go change my major. So I changed my major to chemistry. And I literally told him, I'm like, I'm going to come to your office once a week. And
knowing Shelby, that's actually sounds about right.
Yeah, because I was like, he told me that they're the ones who have the most money on the campus, and so I knew if anybody was going to give me the scholarship, it was going to probably be them. That would be my last chance. So I went back and forth with him every week, and he said, "You just won't stop." And I was like, "Yeah, because." If this school thing, if you want us to be here, I was like, if I stop, then what else am I going to do?
Right.
So at that time, I was still focused on my education in college because I didn't know what else to do. So I was like, I really wanted that opportunity. And I didn't understand why I was getting so much resistance instead of like collaboration. So he finally like gave in, and he was like, all right, listen. He is like, winter break is in a week. You give me your Tiger number, whatever, so he could check my GPA. You'd have to make excellent grades. And he is like, and we're going to give the kids that come out of, you know, high school the money first. But sometimes some kids fell below the GPA. When they do that, we take some money from their scholarship. And there might be some money left over. He's like, but that has to happen. So that doesn't mean anybody's going to fail.
Right.
So I'm like, damn, all these roadblocks. I was like, I go back home with my tail tucked, basically, and I don't tell my mom. Like, literally, I spend all winter break just waiting for his email to see if he emails me. It was the last day where, like, literally, the next day I would have to go back to school, and I wasn't getting ready, and my mom was like,
what's going on?
What's going on? So the day of, I still wait, I get an email, like, 7 a.m. in the morning. It's Dr. Taylor.
Wow.
And the email says, call me ASAP. That's all it says. So I give him a call, and he said, I could not believe what I saw. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, I have never, in my 20 plus years of being a college professor, seen a perfect 4.0. And I was like, what? I'm like, who's he talking about? He's like, you got a 4.0. I was like, what? That semester is funny because I took only science classes. All science classes, very difficult. It was like a big jump, a gradient jump from high school science to college. So
it is,
I got a tutor, and people made fun of me. They was like, why would you get a tutor in the major you're majoring in?
I tell my son that right now, like, you know, you're not too smart to get a tutor. You know, it's like, you know, hey, we don't know everything. So, but
exactly.
anyway, yeah, you're right.
But I mean, you're right, because I literally got A+ in everything, and there's no homework. There's only tests. So you get 5 tests every semester, and that's it, and then your finals. So I aced it. And so when I did that, if I hadn't have like backtracked and thought like, okay, let me get a tutor and get prepared, that moment when he called me wouldn't have happened.
Wow.
So that was a huge lesson I learned in that. Like, okay. And then he called me. He said, you know, if you can come today. No, he said tomorrow. If you could drive down to Houston, you have to be here at a certain time. I will give you a scholarship. But he didn't tell me how much. And he's like, but it'll be enough.
Gotcha.
And so I drove down, and it's funny, Robin, the day I drove down, it was like one of the worst storms. I had a whole little Kia Spectra. Like, I almost got literally trapped in water. Like, I was like trying to race.
Oh, that kind of stuff. Okay, Houston storm. Okay, the water. Gotcha.
And he said, because if you're late, you forget it. And he specifically said that. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm racing in my little Kia Spectra, you know, trying to be hard body, it was blocked, like literally, like the water was, you know, halfway to my car. So I had to go all these different routes. And I finally got to him, and I met the lady, Miss Tolbert is her name. She's actually an AKA, and she's over the program, and she met me, and she's a hard ass too. So she shook my hand and was like, I see why people don't get in this program.
I don't get that. Why we're so. I was having a conversation with a young lady off camera about how we're our own. I don't know. It's
worst
weird.
enemies.
Yeah, it's like
it's a lot. I learned so much to politics.
Politics.
So there's superiority. Like, oh, I'm
gatekeeping.
I'm the professor, or I'm over this program. You know, that existed, and I was like, I can see why college education, university is hard to navigate. But if I didn't have Dr. Mays, I don't know how I would have navigated that. Because he gave me the personality type they already had. He told me, this is what you're going to be facing. And most kids get scared away.
Good point.
And that's why I went and I kept going, because he's like, no, you're going to have to be persistent. Like, they don't just take anybody. So they also want valedictorians. They want the best of the best of the best. Right. Everybody else is like peasants. So when I came with this, like, I mean, before I met with them, I did that thing where you cry and you're in your room, you like, you know, you punch in the wall. And I just wanted to give up. So I had that first. And then I was like, I'm trying, you know, all this stuff. And then I called my cousin. I called my family. Like, I didn't call my mom. I called my cousin. We're like brothers and sisters. And he told me, like, yo, I'll help you with your food, because they took your
meal plan.
They took my meal plan. I told him, don't tell anybody. And he said, because I said, I'm gonna figure out, because like, as long as I can eat, I can keep going. Right. So that gave me time. But back to when Miss Tolbert got me in, and I thought they were just going to give me a little money, and she said, you know what? He talked about you, Dr. Taylor. I don't know what he sees. He's like, yeah, you made a 4.0, but whatever, like that. She's like, but you know what we'll give you? I was like, yeah, what? And she was like, a 5-year scholarship. She's like, just in case you're stupid, we'll give you an extra year.
Now, this is going to be me being stereotypical, but was she light-skinned, okay?
I was lighter than her.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
I knew I could be an AKA after that. She was actually a little darker than you. She wasn't super dark skinned. And she always wore pearls every day. Every day. But I got in, and the rest was history. I got that opportunity to see the triumph, and that was like one of my first huge wins in my life that I could see, like, okay, I overcame something. Other than, you know, when I was younger, I might have not been able to see it, but it was clear as day. And I was balling. I moved off campus, did my thing. You know? At least I thought I was balling. But
right, back then, right.
Yeah, so that was a cool experience. So yeah, that's what brought me to Houston. That was like actually my first experience in Houston that was going to send me back. The first 6 months, like, I was like done, and I had all this turmoil in that first 6 months. And
now how is it, like, because Houston and Dallas are like, to me, two different cities, right?
Yeah, I see that.
How was the climate for you? What was it like trying to adjust?
Man, the climate was crazy. I thought I was gonna die.
I mean, you were in Third Ward. So, rightfully so.
Yeah. It was. Hey, it's funny they put TSU and U of H right beside each other. Right. But the climate was horrible because I couldn't breathe. The humidity. It wasn't that it was hot, because Dallas is hot too, but it's dry heat.
It's dry heat, right?
I used to explain to people, imagine you're in a balloon with pollution and it's hot. and you can't breathe. Like
that's a good.
So when I came, it was that the air was different, the quality of the air, and I'm not saying Dallas doesn't have the places where it's like a whole bunch of cars, but being in Houston, so many people, and right there in that area, to me, I was like, man, I can't breathe. So I acclimated, and it's below sea level, right? So that was pretty interesting because until I started running outside, I literally had to force myself to acclimate like that.
Gotcha. So you got kind of like you adjusted to it.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're a couple years in, and so I'm trying to figure out when did the Entrepreneur Shelby surface? When did that happen?
Well, can I tell you why I had the entrepreneur mindset
Most
before
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the mindset was planted and the seed was like when I was a kid. But so basically, no one in my family that is alive is an entrepreneur. But my grandfather, and this is kind of cool how someone from the grave can influence a whole family.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
So my grandfather, basically, he was the one that, I mean, first of all, he did blues music. His name is Hbcu Hill. Still on YouTube today, millions of views. People still listen to his music. I even went on Hbcu and tell me about Hbcu Hill recently, and they was like one of the most famous blues singers, even though he had a short stint career because he died very young. There's like he has influenced, and his sound specifically influenced how blues was made.
Wow.
So I was on Hbcu like, oh my God, you know. So like don't get me wrong, like love that what my grandfather did, but when I listened to his music as a kid, just imagine, I'm like, what is this? Like we were listening to rap, and you listen to blues and you just don't get it. So as a kid, I really didn't understand it, but they used to give me these Billboard clip outs, which were the top 100 Billboard charts, and he was on them with Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson, B.B. King. So I was like, okay, he must be important, but I didn't see the importance because all the money had been spent. And this is also a cool testament to you can have money in a family generation line. Like our family at that time was making $30,000 a month in the 60s. So we were a black family that lived in a white community. And we were the only black family, as my grandma told me. It was so foreign to the white kids. They would go walking and they would have to fight all the time.
Sounds about right.
Just to go to school, you know, and because they're like nigger, all that kind of stuff because of they didn't see that in that. So that was how much money he was making. Tour buses, Jaguars, all of that. But as a kid, they tell me these stories. But what really hit me was when I would stay over my grandma's house because she was my daycare. And she would tell me to go to the mailbox to check our mail. And I noticed the pattern of there's these four, little packages, and it has the same stamp on it, and it comes once a month. And there are 4 different letters, and I don't know exactly what's in it. But I bring it to my grandma because, black families, you don't open their mail. But I keep seeing it for years, and I'm like, this is crazy. What is this? I don't usually care about mail, but I'm like, I feel like there's money in these. And she would get them because of the way she would look when she got them. Like, ooh, finally it came. So later, I asked my grandma, like, you don't want to get into their business either, right? So I asked my grandma, like, what is in those? And she said, it's royalties.
Because I'm thinking, like, back around that time, they didn't really send checks like that back then. It's like, say, if it's money, that's interesting.
They sent the royalty check.
Right. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's like in that envelope with the little stamp it had, it was from Malaco Records. I could see it said Malaco Records, so that's why I was like, why are you getting stuff? Because that was the record label he was signed to. My grandfather died when he was like 48.
Okay.
So he died on the side of the house I grew up in from a heart attack. He actually had a bag of money they found him with. It was... We don't know what he was going to do.
Right.
But it was a leather bag filled with money. And he just had a heart attack.
Wow.
And so that was like very soon. So, but by the time I was born, it was interesting. A year later, I was born. So then, long story short, I'm like 9 or 10 getting this mail. Malaco Records, I know that's the record label, so why are they sending this mail? He's dead. So I asked her and she said royalties, and she explains it to me because she said it's a check. Your mom gets one, your aunt and your uncle, his 3 kids, and I get one. So I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, how is he getting money? He's dead. And so it just blew my mind. I was like, no, you got to tell me how this works because this don't make no sense. He getting checks from the grave? She's like, Shelby, every time they play that music, we get a little royalties, which is passive income. So that just blew me away. And I was just like, ever since then, I said, and a seed was planted, I need to figure out a way to get mailbox money. That's what I called it.
Mailbox money, yeah.
And I was like, dang, but I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't tap my 2 feet, save my life, you know? So I'm like, what the hell am I gonna do? So that just was the start of it, because I wanted to be like my grandfather. From the grave, he was still taking care of the family. Basically, I didn't even think of being super wealthy. I just liked the lifestyle my grandma had. I just wanted that, because my grandma, I never seen her work a day in her life. She owned 2 houses. She said she owned houses when she was younger and just sold them. So she was like the boss of the family.
Gotcha.
And so that was actually the time where Entrepreneur Shelby was born. And I used to see my mom, you know, create art and sell it sometimes. So that was the other piece of it, like, okay, maybe, but I can't create art. So it's like my mom didn't go far with it, but my grandfather, he was the one who pretty much like created this foundation for our family.
Gotcha, makes sense.
But I learned that, you know, if you have the money, like he would have been a multimillionaire in this day and age. If you don't have the education, the family blew it. So the next generation, by the time my mom and them were grown, like all the money was gone. And they stopped, you know, listening to the music as much. So the 20,000, 30,000 started dwindling down. But they didn't even know what to do with it. So within one generation, gone.
Wow. So, like I said, we met in a certain, I guess, a time frame where you were in that kind of mode to find your way.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So how did you find out about Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich?
So that's pretty cool. So in 2013, I actually got introduced to direct sales. And in that period of time, I was kind of looking at, it was a weird time because I was also in school. I had this 5-year, you know, scholarship. But I got invited to a meeting, and it was everything I wanted to do. I always wanted to travel. I always loved food. I always loved those type of things. Because as a kid, that's what I used to watch. Like people watch cartoons, I watched the Travel Channel.
Okay.
And my mom was like, you don't want to watch no cartoons? I was like, no, I want to watch this. And I was always very hungry. So I was just like, this is what I want to do. And also I saw one time, you know, I was working in the airport when I was younger, like people traveling, nice cars pulling up, taking their family places. And I'm like, man, that's like what I would like to do with my family.
Gotcha.
So when I got invited, it was travel. And I said, okay, this is cool. But what it was the passive income. Because remember, going back, I don't feel special like my grandfather. Like I don't have that, what you would say, outright blatant gift or talent, but I do, but it doesn't look like what he had.
Right.
So I was like, okay, this is something I could do. So that is what started it. But what I realized is when I got into that business, the mindset was everything. So they exposed us as like certain book lists. And when I got closer to people who are making 7 figures, they had their own book list that they were like, focus on these books. A lot of this is written by ghostwriters. You know, a lot of these books out there are written by people who've never built anything. So it was like, I went through a lot of BS books, but I can, because it's in personal development, like it's a ton of books where if you fact check, and you'll be surprised that a lot of the elites don't even read these books because a lot of the stuff is watered down, and they actually have their own libraries in their homes with the actual books that you want to get access to, but you can't because they pass it down. And they have their own list of books they tell their kids to read, even that have been written in the 60s, the 50s. So I learned the farther the book back, the better. And biopics, too. So Think and Grow Rich was one of them because it had the key principle in it, which is the mindset, and how you can think and grow rich. So it gave me a little seed of understanding of, okay, what I need to do to be successful in business, but that was just the beginning. And that book was like one of my favorite books. But
mine too.
And
I actually like the other one, Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice, a little better because I can assimilate with it. You know what I mean? But you know, it is what it is.
It's funny that you said that because I just met a couple who the Napoleon Hill Institute, which is the family line of Napoleon Hill, they have a surviving grandchild.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So. And, you know, he basically, as a Napoleon Hill Institute, you can go through the program and get certified as a trainer of Napoleon Hill material. So this black couple that we met recently at one of our clubhouses that we do, and they came from, like, they literally drove 4 hours to come to this clubhouse, and they made their first $1 million last year in transportation business.
Oh, okay.
They're over the Chamber of Commerce in Louisiana and stuff like that. So, you know, they're doing their thing. So they went through this program, and why I bring it up is because they met Napoleon Hill's grandson, and he said, and to go to your point on the material of the Black Choice, he's like, there's like they watered down that book. Napoleon Hill's copy that we get is not the original copy that he wrote.
It sounds about right.
Because when he put too much information in it, basically, and they took it off the books. The people who were ruling industries like, no, you can't tell everybody that. We don't want that competition. But it's funny. One of the stories, one of the ladies, her name was LaTanya. She took it out and she's like, this is one of the excerpts that was taken out of the book, because he was showing them all the stuff that his dad had written and just literally locked up. And for like 7,500 years, they've been having these transcripts. And one of the stories was of a black cotton picker. Yeah, this didn't make the book. The black.
Oh, here we go. This black backstory stuff.
Black cotton picker who rose to prominence and became a multi-millionaire. But they didn't put his story in the book. So Napoleon Hill's grandson just came out with a book that literally is just old transcripts that his dad he couldn't. They forced him to not put in because it was too empowering.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And they didn't want competition.
Right.
So these guys are like, if you tell them all these secrets per se, then we're going to have competition. And they didn't want that. So there's even vaults to this day with information Napoleon Hill gathered from researching all these guys, seeing the secrets of success that have not been released.
Interesting. I can't wait till those come out.
Yeah.
If they come out.
Yeah.
Right.
If they come out. But there's people, if you get access to, that give you access to them. But Laws of Success, excuse me, if anybody's listening, Laws of Success is a book of, 16 Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill, I believe. And Google it if I have a typo, but it's pretty much that. And that book is like this big. It's like as big as the Bible.
Wow. And
that book is the actual, if you really want more concrete information on Think and Grow Rich, that was the book written before.
Gotcha.
So that's the actual book that I would say has the most information. Think and Grow Rich is a slither, like 0.5% information of that whole book.
Interesting.
And that book is
huge. What about
huge.
the book Outwitting the Devil?
Outwitting the Devil was a cool book to me, and at that time I could see how it helped me understand my mindset. But as I started to mature, and like I said, there's some books they give you that kind of give you more concepts and theories, and then there's the books that these guys read that is like, this is the actual how it works. So I got to understand, like, and not anything against Outwitting the Devil, but what if I told you guys that even that is watered down?
I can see that
compared to the books that you know I have on a list now that I've read, and I'm like, oh, I see why. Like books to see how you control the country, books to see how you get over on people or industries, understanding and real law of attraction, not the way they portray it in the book. What they use compared to what society gets for them to just make a book and make money off of. Like The Secret, like it missed a lot of information.
Gotcha. Speaking of missing information, reason why I got you on today.
Yeah.
So I think you called me, was that last year?
Yeah.
In like December, I forget but sometime last year you was like, hey Robin, let's link up. You know what I mean? And so
it seemed like so far away, but that was like 3 months ago.
A couple months ago. And so now the Shelby I know, she always got her hand in something. You know what I mean? And so, but because of the respect I have for you, I came, you know what I'm saying? And I sat down and I was blown away by the information that you showed me and whatnot. You care to share what it is?
Yeah, we pretty much, it's funny, the journey took me to where I was like, okay, I was in business for a while, and then when I got out of that, I got a call from actually my husband. At the time, he was we were still friends, and he was like, hey, I found a way that, we can reprogram. We've been into mindset for years, right? And we learned about the 3 levels of the mind. And, he's like, I found a way where we can reprogram our subconscious mind. And if you guys are watching this, if you're into Joe Dispenza, if you're into, Bob Proctor, paradigm shifts, different people who've been teaching this information for years, where they go into the understanding of what's holding you back is not usually what's consciously what you think is holding you back. It's like the iceberg effect. You see the picture of the iceberg and everything below, the little tip, that's our conscious mind. Everything below it is our subconscious and unconscious minds, the thing we can't see, the things that we don't even know are affecting us. So he was like, I have a tool that where we can find what's affecting us, what's holding us back, and basically we can reprogram ourselves and educate ourselves on a high level.
Gotcha.
And I was like, okay, I'm excited about that.
Right.
So that's what I came to show you, because I know that you're a man of education. You also are a businessman too. So yeah, you got your hand in the cookie jars too.
I got my hand in a few things too, most definitely.
Yeah, so I was like, but what I loved about this is that it wasn't just a business that was like, hey, get started with something and it's a product and you sell it. That's the gist of every business, right? But this was a tool to me that I had never seen before because it was something that was built off of true elite education, like where the kids who grow up and in their foundation from 0 to 7, which is very important years because that's when you're naturally able to absorb and learn information.
Right.
They're getting a different foundation exposure, so what's under their iceberg looks a lot different than what's under our iceberg. So I was like, what if there's a way we can go in there and re-educate ourselves just as they did, but they had that as their foundation. What if we can change our foundation?
Right.
Then that can change our position in this world.
I agree.
And
I agree
a lot can change with that. So yeah, that's what we met up to talk about.
You know, it was when I went through the process, I want to go through everything. I went, so went through the process, and found out how a certain time in my life actually impeded how I process certain things. I was like, and it made sense, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, so that's what I knew right then. I said, you know what, this is something I want to get into and whatnot, you know. So, and it comes in a pivotal time because now the current president is allowing I think $10,000.
Yeah, through the 528. It's basically a grant. If they approve it, then $10,000 per child per household is going to get $10,000. Well, the family will get $10,000 to go towards, and some people say homeschooling, but really it's whatever education you want to put towards that child. So they didn't have that before. So if they approve that, that means in the year 2025, if whoever's listening, if you have a child and we can get you the factual information for the grant, you can literally, if you're interested in alternative education, private school, anything you could think of, you can allocate that $10,000. Say you have 3 children and you know the system isn't educating them properly. You know that there's some faulting, there's a lot of faults in the education system nowadays. But if you see that and you understand that and you're involved in your children's education and you're like, I want a little bit more for my child, yeah, you can get that $30,000 to go towards their education. And what could that possibly do for your child?
Right.
And so that's where me and Robin also talked about, because with the tool that we have kids at 2 years old reading.
Wow.
We have people, like, it's interesting. We got a kid named Max. He's 7 now. No, actually, I believe he just turned 8. He's either between 7 or 8. But he's so big, I forget how old he is. He's grown up on a ranch. So, those ranch babies are different. Yeah, I'm like, he actually looks 10 or 12, but I was like, he's actually 6 or 7 or 8 or something. But Max, he was working with circuit boards, building little robotics, but he's reading at a university level, college level. And, I've met him. I've spent time with him, me and Max, at his dad's ranch. It's about 40 acres with their family this actual last November. And so I got to hear about Max, but then I got to meet him, in person. And he's been using these tools since he was, 10 months old, because it's an educational tool to where no matter if you're an adult or you're a child, everybody wants to get information down to the knowing part of their brain.
Right.
And that's what the tool does. So Max has actually been able to build his subconscious, but very, it's interesting. If you have a child, they absorb everything. So imagine you're able to give them a high vocabulary very young. And most people will say, well, what does that matter? They just know a lot of words. But if you think about it, vocabulary is the way of seeing.
That's true.
So you can't see how to do something if you don't understand it. So the child has the vocabulary of law, then they become a lawyer. If they have if they have the vocabulary of a medical, doctor, then you're a doctor.
Right.
So that's why we listen to them, because they know more words. If you want to take it down to the basic crude level, they just know more words than we do in that field.
Right.
And that's why they get the degree, and that's why they become the authority. So now we have to go listen to them, and we don't know what they're talking about because we don't have the vocabulary. So it's like you can't hear something that's not inside of you. So if I said encephaly, how many people know what encephaly is? They might be like, I don't know what that word is.
Right,
you just hear words. So if I tell you, you've got encephaly, Robin, you might not live for until 6 months. And you're like, what? So you have to believe what I say now because I have an understanding of something that you don't. And that's why they get paid the big bucks. So Max, going back to him, he's been able to expand his vocabulary in vast things. You know, one time he wanted to get into chess, and he literally was in a chess tournament at 6 years old competing with adults. That was just his interest, so he was able to integrate the vocabulary of chess with the tool and then go perform it. So then he went into robotics, then he got into mushrooms. Yeah, not hey, but it's funny, him and his dad had a conversation. He can read. So he started reading mushroom books, and he said it says you could take it medicinally. So his dad had to break down to him why that wouldn't be best.
At his age.
Yes.
Right.
You thinking you're going to have a conversation with someone like that when they're a teenager, right? With your 6-year-old? Because he can read. And most people say, well, my kid, you know, they can read, but the level of he can read and comprehend. Reading is really when you could integrate information, take it in, process it, means I can do something with it, and then I can explain it and use it in all different ways and combine it with different avenues and patterns. So it's like, that's the level of education these kids are getting with the tool. So that's what we're sharing with families around the world, because imagine your child or even yourself had an elite level education like that. Where would you might be in your life today? Right. So we're basically, for adults, we're turning back time. We're giving ourselves that opportunity to be very intelligent and to be getting different fields. Yeah, because, and this is not, well, this is a knock against the education system right now. I was, as a good friend of mine, Meeks Vegan Pizza, his son is in the 7th grade. They gave him a project on to assimilate. They say they gave him a character to say, what would you do? How can I put it to you? They was actually his son to assimilate with a Confederate soldier. Right, same thing I said. So he's like, wait, hold on a second. So he went to the teacher and was like, hey, this is not right. You know what I mean? And so, but the teacher wasn't there that day. So they told him to take it up with the board or whatever else. So now he had to go to the HI, well, it's now TES now, to tell them, hey, this is not right to get it to my son. He's, you know what I'm saying? How can he assimilate with a Confederate soldier? You know, so, but just that kind of stuff right there is showing where the education system is going. You know what I mean? And so it's like, okay, well, if I can't trust him to do it, I might as well just go ahead and do it myself. Exactly. You know what I mean? And so that's why I think the technology, what you have and what you explained to me, it showed to me is so vital right now. And that's huge, because like what you touched on, Robin, is like if I don't want them to do it, I want to do it myself. And I feel like a lot of families have gotten to that point. It might be some families listen to this that don't know the education system is really extremely bad. So they might be for their first time even getting exposed. They might have an inkling, but they might not really know. But there is this, you know, group of family members where I'm talking to and clients that we're working with. They're like, hey, but that sounds good. I'd like to be able to educate my kids, but there's some fears there. Right. Because let's say if I know I didn't get a solid foundation and I'm the mom, I know I didn't know algebra. I didn't know all these things. I'm still figuring it out. Right. How am I supposed to educate my child and feel confident that I could do that? Right. So that's where the tool we have comes in. We have all the way from 1st grade to 12th grade already programmed in it, with 3 years of university, Harvard Law, Harvard Medical. We even have Spanish in there, French. So pretty much the tool has your whole curriculum for even 3 years, all the way up to 3 years of university. Wow. And so let's say, for example, you don't know what to do and you're like, well, I don't have the time. You know, because that's another objection that a lot of families have. They're like, well, even if I use this tool and it's amazing, it gets my child to learn at a high speed rate, and they become more adaptable. They, you know, they're the ones who are getting the Harvard scholarships, you know, the invites to, you know, all these different places that, you know, people dream their kid, even if they don't want their kid to go to Harvard University, just to know that your child has the processing ability to do that is pretty cool. Right, I agree. They could choose whatever they want when they're in that situation, right? But we're creating, we literally have families that we worked with Canoon. There's some families that they just sent us some testimonies. It's really cool. And I won't name drop because like I could, but you know, so we've been working with them for about 2 years now. And you know, let's just say the kid got started at 16 with the tool. Single family home. So the mom is actually assistant principal.
Oh, wow.
So she's in the school system knee deep, and love her to death. But at first she was kind of adverse to getting the tools. She's like, man, we already about education. We come from a family of educators. Like, we don't need that. But he wasn't doing the best in school. And one thing was he was lacking confidence.
Okay.
So that's the biggest thing. He's a young man. His dad is not around. Imagine when he gets older, he's going to need a ton of confidence to survive in this world. And as a man, you know, a young boy growing into a man, he's going to need to know how to overcome obstacles.
I agree.
So he needs agency. Agency is not something you can get just in school. Agency is the ability to be put in any situation and overcome and literally adapt in that situation. So a lot of kids aren't getting that. So his self-esteem was very low. And when your kid gets low self-esteem, they get bored. Then their grades, they might not do as best because they actually are not interested anymore. They don't feel like themselves. So we could just see him going down that path. And now we get him on board, get him started with the tool. He starts using it. But remember, this child is still in school. So a lot of parents will say, I don't have the time to educate them. I have to, you know, use school as a daycare, to be honest. Let's just be frank.
You're right.
And it's okay. It's just the way the system is set up, because right now we have, you know, one income can't cut it. Right? So most families have to have two incomes.
That's right.
And if you have a single family home like I grew up in and like how he's in, you really don't know what to do.
Right.
So we have solutions for those kids too. So we took Canoon and we said, hey, listen, we're going to work with you. And all you need to do is use this tool about 30 minutes a day. Use it on your homework, whatever they're giving you. You're going to be able to know it like that. So it's going to give you way more of your time back.
Gotcha.
Then you can start doing other things, because he wanted to be first chair in the band. That's like the guy who's the guy, like leads the band.
Yeah.
Right? And so he liked that idea because he didn't want to do more work.
Right.
So I was like, but you do this right, you get in those AP classes. So that's what he did. He started using the tool 30 minutes a day. It's on your laptop, so he's already has it all the time. He started integrating all the information they give him, and he would literally have a cheat code, because he'd come back to class, do the test, do the homework, and he would finish fast, and they'd be like, man, the kids in the class are like, how are you getting this? How do you know this? And he didn't tell them, because he's like, I can't explain to you, really.
I can't give you a cheat code.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I can't get a cheat code. So he gets into AP classes. The next year, he now think about it. When a kid starts learning again, they get excited. They get their confidence. So then he applied for that first chair, because you got to come in front of the band directors and you have to do a live performance.
So almost like drumline when you okay, gotcha. Okay.
And because now what we saw and what we noticed is Canoon's confidence went up when he started learning. So then he felt like I could take on more. I could do more. So he practiced his, you know, his saxophone. That's what he plays.
Gotcha.
And he went and he killed it. And he became first chair. Now kids look up to him. He's grown so much. His vocabulary is so expansive. Other guys in the band, they want him to mentor him.
Oh, wow.
you know what he also did? He said, you know what? Forget this. I'm also going to start making some money. Because now he's learning about, I was like, what else do you want to learn about? Because he's like, well, I got school down on autopilot now with this tool. I said, well, you can use this tool to learn anything. He's like, I want to learn sales.
Interesting.
I was like, really? He said, yeah. He's like, I've sold jewelry before. He was like, but I want to take it to another level. I want to be a tutor. I was like, you want to tutor kids? And he's a kid. He's like, yeah.
Makes sense.
So he started using the tool to expand his vocabulary to be a tutor. And now he has clientele. He already told us, he said, I've made more money than I've ever made in my life monthly. The next year he went to an event, which we stayed because his mom and, you know, other kids, they didn't want to come, their brothers and sisters. But we like, we'll take Canoon, he can chaperone with us. But you have to pay your whole way. Because you a man, right? He's like, because remember, he doesn't have his dad really there for him.
Gotcha.
So we were trying to teach him that if you can learn, prove it to yourself, you can learn how to go make this money. So he used a tool to figure out how to expand his vocabulary and learn how to teach these kids. And he created an income.
That came, I mean, it came full circle, because remember you say when you had a tutor early on, you know what I mean? But anyway, so. You know.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy, right?
Yeah.
And he literally became a tutor. And so he's saxophone, lessons for kids. And what happened was he got the money, but he has to pay for his stay. Now we're going to, at this time it was, I believe, San Diego. And it was we were in Miami, because we went to San Diego and Miami. I don't want to confuse him. So it was Miami because we were staying on the beachfront. And you know how Miami has that, just a whole bunch of hotels on
I haven't been to Miami yet.
Oh man, it's beautiful. Like just a whole bunch of hotels on the beach. And long story short, Ritz-Carlton, which is very pricey.
Okay, I heard Ritz-Carlton.
5-star, and above. Even even said, I think it's a 4 diamond, but it's nice. So he has to stay there, and he has to get the money for that. He sells not only jewelry to get it, he takes on tutoring clients, but then he didn't sell the jewelry because, you know, we were like, hey, if you're selling jewelry to kids, you probably won't get as big a profit.
Right.
And he thought about it, but when you're naturally able to learn again and your natural learning ability is open, because that's what the tool does. It's different from any educational tool because you might have a curriculum and you just use your memory, but this tool actually opens your natural learning ability again, and that is the same thing you had when you were a kid where you could just absorb everything. So we can do that for adult no matter how old you are. So he was able to see again how to learn, so he started thinking different. So he's like, I'm gonna sell it to the adults. So he started selling the jewelry to, but his confidence is up, so he's not afraid to go to exactly. He gets all the money. We take him on the trip, and he comes back, and he's just like, boom. You know, he's feeling himself. He's telling his brother, his sister, and he's the, you know, he's not the oldest. He's the middle child. He has an older brother. He gets so excited, he influences his brother because his brother was not really like into education. He wanted to be a rapper at the time. He says, listen, this is what we need to do. We need to learn. He's like, look how much I've done in this short period of time with this tool. His brother gets so excited about it and sees how much he's grown and he's making money. And he's 16.
Money's the motivator.
And so then it takes his brother on to like them working together. Now they're building business together. And they both, you know, are expanding. You know, Kanoon is about to graduate. And it's cool because he just got a letter from U of H. But he also got that Harvard letter. So that's where it's like, okay, you see this kid coming from no AP classes, all AP classes now, first chair, you know, getting invited to come to Harvard, you know, black kid, single family home, public school. But what is he doing outside of that? How did he get that? 30 minutes a day with the tool to integrate information down to the knowing part of the brain. Once they get the natural learning ability open and they're able to learn, you naturally want to take on more.
Boy, I agree.
And so now he's taking on more responsibility than any kid I've ever met.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So, I know we can go on and talk about this for like 3 hours.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
mean,
So,
like,
you know,
I got tons of stories.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I tell you what, in order for people to either to get exposed to this, how can they find out? How can they, you know, get your social media hooks, whatever else?
Yeah, so I would definitely say I would love to connect through Facebook. That would be a great way because then we could message, set up a time. Because some people might email, but I'm like, nah, I would rather have that relation.
Personally,
yeah, because some families have specific things that they're going through with their children, or maybe wanting to have kids, or even, you know, or just wanting to have questions. So I think that would be great, so we can have a conversation and kind of figure out like what is going on, and if we could even help them. So you can hit me up on Facebook, Shelby Hill, but if you want to find specifically my page, because there's going to be a lot of other ladies that pop up when you put in Shelby Hill.
Really?
Yeah, and I would say my name, the Hill part, but the Shelby,
yeah.
You're going to see a lot of people that don't look like me. You're going to be like, who is these people?
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
I've Googled myself before, and I'm like, who is this?
Yeah, there's a lot of Robin Andersons out there, too.
Yeah, and it's a cool name, but it's like Robin Anderson. I can see how that could be common. So I was like, okay. But if you want to really just get straight to my page, type in Lavon Baby, LAVON Baby 24.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that'll get you straight to my page. So you do Facebook and you just type in Lavon Baby as the handle in the search box. It'll go straight to me. But or you just type in Shelby Hill, find my page, and hit me up.
All right. So I appreciate you because this been a long time coming.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's
it has been. It's pretty interesting. We met I was like, Robin saying about me, like, man, you're on it, personal development. But for a guy to see like a Think and Grow Rich and pick it out, then you were on it too. Because if you know, right?
You know, straight up.
So I was like, and it's just coming up to me and talking. I was like, okay, cool. That's expansive because some people would never do that. They might see someone reading a book, but they just might, just keep it to themselves.
Right.
So if you hadn't came and said something to me, like this is a full circle moment, this wouldn't be happening right now.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. You know. So y'all, like I say, go to politicalstreet.com. If you support the movement, if you're into unity, into improving the community, that's what Political Street is. We get out here and we're interviewing people like Shelby Hill, who's making a difference in our community and whatnot. So you can find me on politicalstreet.com, Instagram Political Street, Facebook Political Street, YouTube Political Street and whatnot. So support the movement, y'all. All right. So until next time, Ms. Shelby, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I gotta have you back. You know, we're gonna circle back around probably another 6 months.
We got to do something again.
Yeah, most definitely. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Till next time, y'all. Peace.
Bye.
definitely want to give a shout out to Political Street, man. That's one of the coldest names you can have. Because we out here in these streets, but these politics is trickling down, so it's all intertwined, man. So we got to figure out how to work it the way we want. So shout out to Political Street.